welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Frankie, welcome to the final week of the regular season in fantasy. You still in, brother? You in the playoffs? What's going on?
Baby. As of right now, technically speaking, I'm still in all 4 leagues, John, which is impressive to even say. However, there's one league, actually 2 leagues that I'm fighting. It's a win I'm in. If I lose, I'm out this week. So how about you, man? How are you looking?
I am winning in or losing out everywhere. I've never been in this situation, man, but listen, first of all, we've got a disadvantage on fantasy because we're telling everybody what we're going to do, what our strategies are. And I've seen, then you go straight to the waiver wire, you go straight to the lineup, you see everybody making the moves and advice that we have in our leagues. And I'm like, shit, man, that's a disadvantage for me. But I got to tell you, this has been one of the weirdest fantasy football seasons I've ever had in my life. The injuries to the quarterbacks, it's one thing if your running back gets hurt. Okay, your running back gets hurt. It doesn't necessarily affect the entire team around them. These quarterback injuries have affected every player on the offense, man. It's really been difficult. I mean, rankings for next year, I don't know. Hey, guess what, guys? Strategy for next year, I'm drafting 2 quarterbacks in a single quarterback league, and I'm having a solid backup everywhere. I think the days of that are over. I think you need to have that now, man. It's insane.
John, and you know what's interesting too is with even the rules in place now, even compared to the era of Tom Brady, go back even more so to Terry Bradshaw, Montana, etc. The rules now even protect the quarterback even more. And it was funny because I was listening to what Tom Brady said. And he said these rules are actually creating more problems for quarterbacks and players because now they're not being able to protect themselves the way they used to, knowing a hit's coming or knowing that something else is happening. Comparatively now, they just assume that the ref is going to throw the flag and it's going to be a blown ball dead. So it's really fascinating, to your point, to see things changing in the NFL, which is now bleeding into a draft strategy change for we're now drafting 2 quarterbacks in a single quarterback league.
The other things are, it's the salary cap issues as well. Changes of the salary cap over the past couple of years. You can't have a good quarterback sitting on your bench that you're paying. You just can't do it. You have to sacrifice for other pieces. But I think hopefully teams will adjust and GMs will adjust a little bit, just seeing what has happened this year. I mean, it's just destroyed teams. You lose Joe Burrow, destroy. You lose Deshaun Watson, destroy. You lose Aaron Rodgers.
Trevor
Holy
Lawrence.
shit, destroy. Trevor Lawrence, we haven't even seen what's going to happen with that. And we'll get into that real soon here. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. I want to thank our watchers, our listeners, our audience. I don't think we appreciate you enough live on the podcast. I want to do that. The growth that we've had has been exponential this year.
Unbelievable.
And I'm so thankful, especially these last couple of weeks. I know everybody's trying to get into their playoffs, and we can see, trust me, I look at the analytics every week. I know you guys are watching in this week because you want to know what the fuck you're supposed to do this week. But we're going to get you back this week. All right, today, guys, we're going to do a little Thursday night football preview. We're going to do a little Ice and Fire, Island of Misfit Toys. We're going to see some guys that did really shitty, and what do we do with them for this week and through the playoffs. Guys that were on fire. Frankie's going to let us know. Are they going to stay in the flames? Are they going to stay on fire? We'll find out, man. But first, as always, we're going to get to a little news, baby.
The season that your listeners don't expect.
News and notes. Okay, it was a bloodbath week, man. This is not what everybody wants to hear going into the last week when your life is on the line. Your fantasy life is on the line this week. All right, first of all, we all saw Trevor Lawrence, really bad injury. When he went down and got back up and fell down, did that not look exactly like Aaron Rodgers? First thing I thought of was, oh no, that's Achilles. Holy shit. He avoided serious injury. And then they show him walking off into the tunnel like like a 90. He looked like Biden walking down the tunnel. And I'm like, would you get this guy a cart? He's your franchise. He's the face of your franchise. Get him a cart. What the fuck?
At home. They were at home.
At home. Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. That was weird. The good news is Trevor Lawrence, he does avoid a serious injury. It looked so bad. It is a high ankle sprain, though. He's going to miss some time. It's likely you won't have him at all with a high ankle sprain through the playoffs. It's possible. We'll see what reports. It's still very early. We'll see what the reports are. Maybe he comes back for your championship if you're still in at that point. But make plans to be without Trevor Lawrence. Christian Kirk also left the game. Core muscle. He's going to miss a few weeks. It's early, but they're saying it's going to be weeks that he misses. Frankie, talk to me about the Jacksonville Jaguars moving forward now. I mean, you're looking at week 14, guys that have, Calvin Ridley, guys that have Travis Etienne, guys that have Evan Ingram. How is this affecting now with Beathard, or Beathard is what I like to call him?
Yeah.
How is it going to affect them, man?
John, I actually think this is going to help Travis Etienne. I think that there's going to be quite a few more checkdowns. I think that this could open up the run game a bit more for him to actually come out and be more of a pure runner. So for me, for those people that have held on to Travis Etienne, I like it. A guy that also others are not talking about, and I think that this could also bode well, is that of D'Ernest Johnson. John, we've seen D'Ernest come in and be very serviceable with Travis Etienne, with him being a little bit banged up here and there. Now I could see them knowing that the pressure is going to be on Etienne, knowing that the pressure could be on Calvin Ridley and Evan Ingram, like you mentioned. I could see them absolutely going more towards a Baltimore style of play a little bit, right? Where there's Gus Edwards, where there's Keaton Mitchell, where there's, Justice Hill, right? Things like that, to where now, yes, you're going to get a heavy dosing of Travis Etienne, but yes, you also might be getting hit as well with D'Ernest Johnson. And so for me, man, I think that this could be very interesting for those that have held on to D'Ernest, or maybe it is Tank Bigsby. It seems like it is more D'Ernest at this point in time, but that could be really interesting down the stretch to get them to at least stay competitive while Trevor Lawrence is out. John, with Christian Kirk, obviously let's set him to the side. So now we're looking at Zay Jones, Calvin Ridley, etc. And so and Agnew, we could definitely see the emergence of Agnew once more, knowing that, Kirk could be out. So for me, man, I think this is going to significantly hurt these other guys, right? Trevor Lawrence was phenomenal at being able to spread the ball around. He was targeting Calvin Ridley quite a bit, even though he had a really shit game this past week. We saw him target him more often than not. And then we saw, right, Zay Jones do what Zay Jones does. So the other person then is Evan Ingram. What does Evan Ingram look like? For me, man, I go back to watching Beathard in San Francisco. San Francisco with George Kittle and that of CJ Beathard was awesome. And fun fact, they played with each other at Iowa, those two guys. So now bringing Beathard over here, knowing that they have a dynamic Evan Ingram, very similar, not as good as Kittle, but very similar in the way they run routes and things like that. John, this could actually benefit Ingram. So for me, man, I'm way more nervous on the receivers. I'm a little bit bullish on ETN, and I'm kind of a lot of bit bullish actually on Evan Ingram as a nice safety blanket. So it's going to be really interesting how this shakes out, but I'm curious to know what you think in regards to Ingram and ETN specifically.
I think Zay Jones and Calvin Ridley, unfortunately, I think they're dart throws at this point. You have to hope for a big play. I can't confidently put those guys out there. Calvin Ridley with Trevor Lawrence was already boom bust at that point. What I do think, I'm with you on Travis Etienne. I think it slows him down. I think he's going to have less scoring opportunities, but I still think he's going to be extremely involved. A lot of checkdowns. I think through the passing game, he might be excellent. I think the one guy, it's Evan Ingram, man. I'm looking at it right now. Watching the game, he targeted Evan Ingram constantly. This isn't a guy who's going to take a ton of deep shots. He's going to take that big target 5 yards down the field and try to get some yak after the play there. Evan Ingram, just to let you know, he is the tight end 3 this week. He was. 9 targets, 9 catches, 82 yards and a touchdown. You get that out of a tight end that you may even be able to stream at this point. Check your waiver wires. If Evan Ingram's sitting out there, pay everything you've got, get him. This is a guy who could really help you through the playoffs at the tight end position. Love it, man. Okay, moving on here. Ramondre Stevenson. This hurt us both, man. This hurt us both. Ramondre Stevenson out, quote, weeks with a high ankle sprain. You're not going to see him in your fantasy playoffs here, guys. Ramondre is going to be done. Really unfortunate. Let's talk. He was really the only player you could play on the Patriots. Fun fact about the Patriots this week. The Patriots covered the spread, Frankie, getting shut out. Have you ever heard of that in your life?
No.
I mean, they covered the spread. It was 6. They covered the spread and got shut out.
That's absurd.
Absolutely absurd. We'll skip the Ramondre news and talk about New England here because we're going to talk about them on the Thursday night preview. So we'll get back to that here. Puka Nacua has a shoulder sprain. Man, that guy has been a beast. I mean, is he playing like a warrior on the field or what, man?
He's incredible. He's incredible. Like, not good, incredible.
He is. And it's pretty clear that Cooper Kupp is kind of in decoy mode right now. He's not healthy. Puka seems to be the first look. He really does.
Definitely.
But he got a shoulder sprain. McVay does expect him to play Sunday versus the Ravens, so it doesn't sound like it's going to limit him at all. It is a tough matchup, but if you've got Puka Nacua, you're definitely playing him, man. He's had such an unbelievable season. Derrick Henry, weird news. Derrick Henry is not in the concussion protocol, despite earlier reports. How many people freaking out on their waivers, picking up Tajay Spears, or other guys are going, I've been sitting on Tajay Spears, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, it's not happening. Derrick Henry, the
Just
Yeti.
kidding.
Just kidding. JK, he's fine. Yeah, Derrick Henry is going to be out on the field, and man, he's a smash play this week and the next few weeks. He really is. Kenny Pickett, Pittsburgh Steelers, just dealing with some shit here, man. Kenny Pickett, he's out this week for Thursday Night Football. We'll talk about that. Trubisky's going to be starting, but Kenny Pickett had he's scheduled for ankle surgery, not going to be on IR as of now, but Kenny Pickett's done for the fantasy playoffs. That's just going to be over. Also on Thursday Night Football, we'll talk about that. Wow. Banger of a matchup on Thursday Night Football this week, guys. Yeah, my God. All right, let's move on here. Some great news. Mike Evans. What a fantastic. You don't hear tons about Mike Evans. He's just kind of a silent warrior out there.
Totally.
Mike Evans, what a milestone. Achieved this past week 1,000 yards in every single season he's played. 10 years straight. Just super impressive, man.
John, he could end up passing Jerry Rice's record of 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons. When that happened, there's a few key records that Jerry Rice holds: passing, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, right? Receiving yards, especially. Like, nobody thinks that that's going to be able to be broken. It's one of those records. This was also one of those records that people never thought would even be remotely touched. 11 seasons straight of 1,000 yards or more. And what Mike Evans has done, John, it honestly might be even more impressive than Jerry Rice. And the reason why I say that is because Jerry Rice had 2 Hall of Famer quarterbacks throwing him the ball. You go to Mike Evans, he's had shit stains throwing him the ball. I looked at a thing, John. It was Josh McCown, Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, right? Fitzmagic.
Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
Mike Glennon
from NC
Right?
State. Yes.
Yeah.
Just so flowers are due when something like this happens. And Mike Evans, fucking amazing work, man. Unbelievable.
I was trying to find a list of all of the quarterbacks Mike Evans has played with, and just a few of them like that you just named came up. But my God, he's done it with everyone. I mean, he really has. It's impressive, man. Hats off to you. Hats off to you guys who might have him on your fantasy team.
No
too.
kidding.
You want to talk about just those guys that we talked about with that solid floor, that solid foundation. Mike Evans is the epitome of that guy.
Totally.
He really is. Derek Carr, quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, in concussion protocol again. He's going to miss, guys. This is the second one in a month that he's had, so that it's not good. It's very likely Jameis Winston will be starting this week. What does that do for you with the Saints? They've got a really nice schedule coming up here for the playoffs. Do you think that hurts Olave in any way? Olave and Kamara are really basically the only guys you're going to be playing. Maybe throw in a little Taysom Hill here and there. But what do you think that's going to do with those guys?
John, I think it's going to actually help Olave. I really believe that. And the reason being is because Olave, where he thrives, is his ability to run routes from the deep route perspective. And we know Jameis, he's going to throw it up and give you a shot. So with Michael Thomas out, John, with Rashid Shaheed banged up to all hell, right? I could see Olave being absolutely the focal point and Jameis giving him opportunities. So for me, man, I think this is huge for Olave owners. And for Kamara, this is interesting because there's a part of me that kind of believes that it would hinder him a bit. Derek Carr is known to check it down quite a bit, and that's where Alvin Kamara has thrived. But after last game, I think I'm okay, John. I think Alvin Kamara is still going to be Alvin Kamara because Jameis is also looking at him because there's no other option in the receiving game. So I really think, and again, to the point of he had 8 targets last game alone. So John, I think that this could, I don't think things are really going to change that much, if I'm being completely honest with you. If anything, I think that this is going to give them the ability to stretch the field a bit more because Jameis is going to air it out. Now, whether it's a pick or whether it's a completion, that's a different discussion. But if we're talking about giving your players an opportunity to succeed, especially from a fantasy perspective, dude, Olave could be a grand slam play this week. Love it.
Great schedule moving forward, too, for the Saints players. You've got Carolina this week. Then for your playoffs, you've got the Giants, the Rams, and Tampa Bay. Really nice schedule for those guys. Yeah, definitely. In fact, I think against that Week 15 episode that we're going to do here, first week of the playoffs, we might do a little Would You Rather with Jameis Winston and some of these shit-stained quarterbacks that you're deciding against. So we'll take a look at that here in the future, guys. Stay tuned. Okay, Amari Cooper also in the concussion protocol. Keep an eye on him. It's early. Tank Dell, man, this one sucks. Tank Dell fractures his leg. He is out for the season. Just a great rookie storyline this year, and really looking forward to him next year, man. But as far as impact, what we're looking at here, we've talked about this before. I mean, C.J. Stroud is a lock right now, is starting for quarterback. Obviously, Nico Collins, man. I mean, he's just been unbelievable. 191 yards and a touchdown last week. I mean, Nico Collins at this point is a must start. Who's going to be the second guy? Is this the week for Noah Brown?
Sure is. Noah Brown now is a must start in fantasy football. How fucking nuts is that?
Can you say that again? That only in week 14 will these words ever be uttered, you know?
Noah Brown is a must start until further notice. John, without Tank Dell, it is 100% the Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz show. Dalton Schultz has been banged up. And then what we saw when Tank Dell got hurt, dude, Noah Brown was being targeted like crazy, man, and trying to make some serious catches along the sideline. I mean, almost toe tapped and an impossible catch. And it was brilliant. And so for me, yeah, dude, jump on board. Come on in, baby. The water's fine. Get you a little bit of Noah Brown and enjoy the ride.
Without Tank Dell or Nico Collins, when it was just two of them healthy, which that's what it's going to be, you know, this coming week, Noah Brown had 21 points and 26 points in fantasy. I mean, he was the wide receiver 2 and the wide receiver 7 those 2 weeks. That was 3 weeks ago. So, yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I mean, you're looking at the Jets this week. It is a difficult
That's a tough matchup. Yeah.
But somebody's going to catch the ball. They're going to be throwing the ball. Yeah, it's very difficult to run on these guys as well. But you've also got in your playoffs, they've got Cleveland as well in the playoffs. That's going to be difficult. But they play Tennessee twice in the playoffs. First week of the playoffs, and then your Super Bowl is Tennessee. You can play Noah Brown. You can play Nico Collins. You can play C.J. Stroud. Fantastic, man. Love it. Okay, Brian Robinson, running back for the Washington Commanders, left the game with a hamstring injury. They're on a bye week this week, so that's good. It gives them some extra time to heal, but keep an eye on him. We'll talk about him coming into the first week of the playoffs here. Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Colts. He had thumb surgery. He's going to miss 3 to 5 weeks, which means you're not having Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, it's just absolutely sickening. What a roller coaster ride that guy was to have on your team this year, you know? So let's talk about that. Zach Moss, rough week for Zach Moss this past week. Is he a lock moving forward? Is this a guy that you feel great about? Are we going to be talking about him on the starts and sits this week? What's going on?
John, yeah, I think he's a start. I wouldn't say he's a lock. I would say, yes, you're firing him up if you have him, especially if you had like Rashad White or excuse me, not Rashad White, but you have James Conner and a few others that are on bye. Like I believe it's Brian Robinson or Antonio Gibson, right? Things like that, knowing that they're on bye. Yes, man, you're firing them up. And here's what's interesting, John. Yeah, he had a shitty week, right? He ran the ball 19 times for 51 yards, right? And then he had 2 catches for 6 yards. But The problem was the game script didn't adhere very well for him. And so, John, when we look ahead, they have the Bengals right now, and we just saw like ETN had a really nice showing against the Bengals.
You can run on them.
Pittsburgh, you can absolutely run on at this point in time.
Look at James Conner did.
Exactly. Atlanta, which is interesting. Atlanta's actually a little bit tougher than what people think, but I still think it's a solid matchup. And then in your Super Bowl, the Vegas Raiders. John, these next 3 out of the 4 weeks, I would say absolutely you can start Zach Moss. The only week that I'm like a little bit teetering on is that of the Falcons, especially being at the Falcons. So, man, the Colts are on the precipice of getting into the playoffs. Gardner Minshew cannot carry the load alone. Zach Moss, when he had the complete backfield to himself, he was dominant for majority of the year, the number 5 overall running back in half PPR. So for me, man, I am absolutely firing up Zach Moss. I'm not saying he's a lock every week, but I'm saying he's good enough to be a top 12 running back from here on out every week, in my personal opinion.
All right. Last bit of news here. Christian Watson, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, left the game with a hamstring injury. He had a hell of a game, too. They're finally getting him involved. Yeah. Not sure. He's had a hamstring injury. I don't know if it's the same one. It's a little early, but he's had some issues with the hamstring. He could be out quite a while. So keep an eye on that. You may not be able to use Christian Watson here. All right, Frankie, let's get to our island of misfit toys and tell me what the fuck we're going to do with these guys.
Charlie, that's why I'm a misfit toy. My name is all wrong. No child wants to play with a Charlie in the box, so I had to come here.
Where's here?
We're on the island of misfit toys.
All right. Let's find out what we're going to do with these Charlies in the box here, Frank. First guy I want to talk about is Breece Hall. This has been one of the most frustrating players. It's a guy that I thought was going to lead me to a Super Bowl this year. I've got him. I had him and Bijan, and they both were under 10 points this past week. Breece Hall, 13 rushes for 16 yards. I mean, that's not Breece Hall. What the hell is that, man? 4 points for Breece Hall. This Jets team is really rough. I mean, Garrett Wilson was coming into the season looking like he could be just an absolute breakout into the top 5 of receivers. Breece Hall, same thing. Obviously, with the loss of Aaron Rodgers, like we talked about at the top of the show, just destroyed everyone's value.
Everything.
What are we doing with Breece Hall moving forward? I mean, you're starting him, but what do we expect moving forward? If you're in a short league, you're in a 10-team league, and you've got a stable of running backs, and Breece Hall's one of them. Looking at the schedule moving forward, what do you do with him, man?
John, this is one of those situations that's extremely difficult to diagnose because there's so many moving pieces, man. The offensive line is dog shit. Right now, they're trying to go back from a quarterback perspective back to Zach Wilson, but it's not 100% going to happen. There's reports that Zach Wilson doesn't want to. There's reports that Robert Saleh doesn't want to. They're not really willing to give up Tim Boyle yet, which is crazy because it hasn't been good at all. And so for me, man, all of this factors into Breece Hall's play. He had 19 touches last week, and he had 7 total fantasy points in half PPR. And looking ahead, they play Houston, at Miami, Washington, and at Cleveland for your Super Bowl. First and foremost, if you make it to the Super Bowl in an 8 to 10 man league with Breece Hall, you are not playing him in your Super Bowl. There's no freaking way that you're willing to put your Super Bowl season on Breece Hall's shoulders, playing at Cleveland in a game that could literally mean life and death for the Cleveland Browns and potentially the Jets if they end up going on a little bit of a run here. So, John, breaking it down, Houston could be interesting, though. Houston is not a team that's sitting here that's an absolutely stout defense. They're good, but they're not by any means the Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, right? The 49ers, that kind of thing. So I think you can fire up Breece Hall this week. Where it starts getting difficult is when it's at Miami. Because what happens here is it could absolutely be a game script nightmare. Because, Breece Hall was getting targeted, right, John? I mean, you mentioned it. He ended up having 8 targets. That's great. But they're going to need so much more than that. Now with Jalen Ramsey back healthy, Bradley Chubb's looking incredible for the defensive side and for the Dolphins, etc. So that's a game that's going to be tough, guys. It's the first week of the playoffs here. But then you have a dream matchup in Washington. That is a must start Breece Hall no matter what. If you don't start him then, when are you going to start him? So, John, this is really difficult to diagnose because the question that you asked me was, what do we do with him for the rest of the year? Guys, this is a guy that's going to be hot and cold, a start one week and not a start the next. You have to be active and strategic when placing or starting guys like Breece Hall. There might be better options. Maybe you have James Cook as well. I'm firing up James Cook over that at Breece Hall in a couple weeks, right? So it's not as easy as, I'm going to just set it and forget it, or no, I'm benching him. He's going to be in and out of the lineup in the next 4 weeks.
And everyone, please, we've got your back, okay? We're going to be looking at these playoff matchups.
Totally.
We're going to be looking at these guys that you have on your teams and what you should do with them. So pay attention and tune in for the playoffs, guys. All right, another guy, Justin Herbert, man. What in the hell? Let's just throw Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler out there together. Justin Herbert with 8 points. Austin Eckler, 14 for 18. 2 for 9 receiving, 3 points out of him. What's going on with this Chargers team, man?
John, I think this really goes, I think that this is a nightmare situation for the Chargers across the board, right? Like Justin Herbert should not be this bad. Like I'm looking at his stats, he's the number 6th overall quarterback in fantasy. And you're just like, wow, that's incredible. The problem is, John, is that the quarterback play has been so shit across the NFL from a fantasy perspective and kind of from an NFL perspective that's skewed. Number 6 isn't that great when you're seeing CJ Stroud at number 5 or number 7, depending on your league. Or, you go back to Kirk Cousins and he was number 8 and put up double the numbers that Justin Herbert. This is strictly because there are 10 rookie quarterbacks playing and that's skewing everything. And so when you look at Herbert, man, and Eckler, red flags need to be going off every week because it's not right, man. When Kellen Moore left, right, and it's causing all sorts of problems, man. I really think I'm really close to saying you might need to look in a different direction coming down the pike, because here's the deal: they play at New England, right, and then they play against Denver this coming week, who, by the way, their defense has been showing up recently. Yeah. Okay, you go at Vegas. I'm definitely firing up Herbert. I'm definitely firing up Eckler, of course. Vegas. Buffalo has been one to where 1 week their defense looks amazing. The next week they are getting their shit pushed and having 40 points put up against them. So I'm probably starting them again. And then you have at Denver. So, John, the question that we need to be actually asking is, do we see Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler thriving against Denver, or do we actually see them not? And that's the big question. They're playing them twice in the next 4 weeks. And the rest of, Vegas is a good matchup and Buffalo is a toss-up. So for me, man, I think you probably should still look to start Herbert. It's been tough sledding. Stay in the flames with him a bit. But Eckler, I'm probably saying the same thing, knowing the injury landscape. It's just crazy right now with the injuries for running backs. So, yeah, but John, it's not a good start. They're not exciting good starts right now. It's been pretty tough.
In my mind, it would be let's start them at home against Denver, see what happens here. Because Eckler, I feel like he's going to come out at the end of the season and say that he was hurt all year, that he had something happening that wasn't disclosed. He's not right, and it doesn't make sense. And he specifically has a beautiful schedule for the playoffs. But see what he does with Denver here. You're going to fire Eckler and Justin Herbert up to Vegas. It's that Buffalo week that you're going to have to see. If it continues the way it has against these two defenses, you're going to have to make other plans against Buffalo. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yep.
Okay, let's keep going here. Adam Thielen, 4 points. I told you not to start him anyway. Terry McLaurin. Okay, social media, Instagram. Terry McLaurin posts, I was doing a lot of cardio out there. I think Terry McLaurin listens to the podcast because I literally said that about
you
Terry
verbatim
McLaurin.
Said that.
I verbatim said that, hey man, I'm not starting John Dotson or Terry McLaurin this week. They've been doing is cardio over the past 2 weeks. He literally came out and said that. He posted a goose egg, 0 catches. And I just thought that, shout out to Terry McLaurin, Ohio State boy. I hope to God you listen to the podcast, Terry. You know what? We're going to tag your ass on this. We're rooting for you. We want to start you. I know it's not your fault. You're incredible. I wish you were on a different team, Terry, because you'd be so good, man.
I miss you, Terry.
Miss you, scary Terry. All right, Devin Singletary, 4 points. This sucks. This one hurts, and it's the Dameon Pierce. We talked about this last week. Is it going to affect Devin Singletary with Dameon Pierce in there? The answer is obviously yes. It's going to be really hard to start either of these two guys. What do you think moving forward here with Devin Singletary?
Yeah, John, I agree. I don't think you can. I mean, we talked about it from CJ Stroud and the receiver perspective, what their schedule looks like moving forward for the running backs. It's brutal. It's brutal. I mean, we're talking at the Jets. That is not a good matchup. Tennessee, it could be a decent matchup. It might not be. Cleveland, not super great. And then you go back at Tennessee, again, from a rush perspective. So, John, for me, man, I don't think you can start either of these guys unless one of them get hurt. And that's the reality. So they're splitting themselves out of the ability to make a difference in your fantasy team.
Yeah, there's just not enough volume. I mean, once Dameon Pierce came back, he was 46% of snaps. Yeah, that's not going to be enough. He's not that guy that can take that small load with 8 carries. He had 9 touches total in the game. 9 touches, that's not a Devin Singletary a play for you. It's just not going to be enough. He needs like 15 to 17 touches, really, to be considered fantasy relevant. Calvin Ridley, we talked about him, 5 points there. DeAndre Swift. Interesting. I know he left in the game, but it was late in the game. And monitor his status. It should be okay. I didn't include it in the news because it seems like it's going to be fine. He was 6 for 13, man. They got boat raced and just game scripted out. Is that what we're talking about here?
That is, but John, what was interesting was usually they still pepper him with a little bit of passes out of the backfield. John, he was taken completely out of play. And so looking ahead, man, they have Dallas, at Seattle, and then they have the Giants and Arizona. So thinking about your teams, this week is going to suck. Next week is going to be tough. But then if you can make it to the semis and the championship, DeAndre Swift could be absolutely dominant. And it's almost, you should be thanking the 49ers for beating the shit out of Philly. You know why? Because now for week 17 and 16, John, they have something to play for. Right? Yeah. Now they're not running away with the NFC, which reverts back to fantasy. Now they're not going to take out their starters. Now they're going to push to have that number 1 seed in the NFC. So everybody who is a Philly fan from a fantasy perspective should actually be thanking the 49ers for beating the shit out of them, because now it gives you the ability to leverage them when it matters most in the semis and the finals. So hold tight on DeAndre Swift. This week's going to be brutal. Next week might be a little bit better. Semis, championship, smash plays.
Smash plays. Oh, yeah. All of your Eagles for those games. The way it's set up, you're absolutely right. They're playing for something, and that's a good thing late in the season here. All right, let's talk about some of these guys that were on fire, Frankie. And let's talk, some of these guys are a little confusing and they have some rough schedules coming up. And, they did great this week, but do you continue to start them? Do you stay in the flames? Talk to me about a couple of these guys. I know you've been watching Jordan Love a lot this year. I know you've got him in one of your leagues.
Love him.
So you definitely watch him pretty closely here. Jordan Love, great game. I mean, he's got the past 3 games. He hasn't thrown any picks. I mean, he's playing really good football. It seems to be a little streaky because he went through a few games, kind of mid-season like that, and then took a turn. And then now he's kind of back to where we were hoping for him. 32 points out of Jordan Love. What are we doing moving forward? How do you feel about him?
John, love him moving forward. I am a huge Jordan Love fan. The reason being is because it's the velocity on the ball that he has now, and he's scattering it around. Even with Christian Watson hurt, the emergence of Reed, you have Dobbs, you have Tucker, Wicks coming in play, and also AJ Dillon looks like good enough to help him. And so, John, looking at his schedule, man, we're looking at Giants, done, must win for Packers. This is a smash play. Then they have Tampa Bay. The reason why I love this, Tampa Bay's defense is good, very underrated. The reason why I love this for him, Tampa Bay, all warm down there with your fucking palm trees, drinking margaritas on the beach. Guess where you're going? You're going to the frozen tundra up in Lambeau, right? And it's a completely different feel up there. So I love Jordan Love that week. And then, John, it's at Carolina and at Minnesota. Dude, his schedule.
Wow.
His schedule is unbelievable. John, he may or may not be in our starts and sit this week. So, guys, for me, and if you have Jordan Love on the waiver If you see an opportunity, your trade deadline is not over yet. Make a play for Jordan Love. Everything is pointing that way, right? The schedule, his progression. John, he has also had in his last 4 games against Pittsburgh, 21 points, at the Chargers, 20 points, at Detroit on Thanksgiving, he had 32 points, and then Kansas City. These are decent defenses that he is carving up. So for me, man, this is a smash play. Get him where you can and fucking sit back and watch Jordan Love sneak them into the playoffs.
And he should be getting Aaron Jones back soon. Might not be this week, but it could be next week. And that's going to help as well in the passing game and the running game. Love it, man. All right, Matthew Stafford against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, we don't start quarterbacks against the Cleveland Browns, man.
No.
32 points. Now, yes, Miles Garrett was definitely banged up. Not much of a factor in this game. That contributed to it. No Denzel Ward, but still, you got to give credit where credit is due.
Totally.
Matthew Stafford still doing it, man. 32 points with an injured Cooper Kupp. Really, Puka Nacua was the main guy on offense. He threw some to Kyron Williams as well. What are we doing moving forward? I know the schedule's nice for Matthew Stafford, but there are a few spots in there that might be difficult. What are you thinking?
John, yeah, you hit it. This is the week that's going to be difficult. They're at Baltimore and a must-win week for Baltimore and kind of for the Rams. And so Baltimore, where have they shined, man? It has been in the defensive end against the pass. So this is a week that I'm going to level set expectation on Matthew Stafford. Yes, he's had 29 points against Cleveland, 30 points against Arizona. I'm actually seeing more like what he played against that of Seattle, right? That 11, 12 to 15 point range. That's where I think he's going to be in this week. So I would level set expectation. But John, to your point, man, it's Washington after that. Then it's New Orleans who's banged up. And then it's the Giants in the Super Bowl. So, yes, this is a fucking phenomenal schedule after this week. So for me, I'm looking elsewhere. I actually have Matthew Stafford and I have Jordan Love on one team. I am actually going with Jordan Love over that of Matthew Stafford this week. And same thing with Russell Wilson, meaning I have Russell Wilson in a week or in a league as well as Matthew Stafford. And for me, I'm riding Russell Wilson this week. This is just not a great matchup. And I'm not willing to put my fantasy implications in the hand of Matt Stafford, knowing Puka's banged up, Cooper's banged up. And then right now you're playing against a top 2 defense against the pass. So after this week, fire him up. This week, temper expectations.
All right. We already talked about Nico Collins. He's a must start at this point.
Fire him up.
Yeah, Rashee Rice. You got to love him right now as well. I mean, you're running with Rashee Rice anywhere you go. Yeah, absolutely, man. What are we doing with the Steelers here? Let's talk about. Actually, let's get into the Thursday night preview. Okay. I want to talk some Steelers. I want to talk some Patriots. These are 2 teams with everything that's gone on. It's difficult. I'm not sure what to do here. All right, Thursday night football preview, guys. We've got the New England Patriots traveling to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers are favored by 6. Get a load of this over-under here, Frankie. The over-under is 30 points. 30 points. Have you seen an over-under that low before?
Not in the NFL. Certainly. I saw it again in NCAA with Iowa. I mean, that was ridiculous, 29, but certainly not in the NFL, 30.
Okay, so let's look at fantasy. We've got Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky on Amazon fucking Prime.
So ugly.
It's so ugly, man. I mean, I don't want to go to these games. You know, I love going to away games. I love going to football games. I don't want to see these quarterbacks play football. I don't.
No.
I don't, man. All right, we'll table that for after the season. We can bitch about everything that happened. Let's talk about New England. Is there anyone at all that you can play in New England this week?
John, yes. In my opinion, there's actually roughly 2 people. And I'm saying roughly because it's a stretch on both. The first one is Zeke. With that of Ramondre officially out, Zeke is definitely the guy. This is why you held on to Zeke for so long, right? So if you have him, I would be starting him this week. JaMychal Hasty could also be interesting. We have no idea what he's going to look like, how this is going to unfold, but we do know that Belichick has always loved a rotation within the running back situation. So we saw what Hasty could do at 49ers and with the Jags previously. Definitely a dynamic player. Change of pace to Zeke could be interesting. I'm not willing to start him because I have other options. However, could be crazy, a crazy interesting start if you decide to. John, the other guy in addition to that of Zeke is Parker, actually. And the reason is Devontae Parker, as long as he's healthy, John, because he was limited, day to day. But the thing with Parker, man, is that he ended up having 4 receptions for 63 yards with Bailey Zappi thrown in the ball. What that doesn't include or account for is the target share. With Bailey Zappi, he had 9 targets. That is more than every other week that he's played this year or so far. And what's crazy, John, that's actually more than his week 12, his week 8, his week 7, and his week 6 almost combined in targets. And so for me, what this is saying is Bailey Zappi with 9 targets going to this cat, if he's healthy, I am actually willing to fire him up in a super deep league. I'm talking 16-man, 14-man, maybe you have a double flex, maybe you have Marquise Brown, James Conner that you're firing up in your flexes that aren't available, or Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, right? That kind of thing. Now you need a plug and play. All these injuries are happening. Devontae Parker, if playing, could be interesting, man. So, but those would be truly the only 2 that I am willing to kind of plant my flag in.
I think you could stream the New England defense this week. Mitch Trubisky,
yes,
very well known for throwing picks. And I think if New England scores, it might be the defense this week. I really do.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, because there's a lot of guys out there that have a lot of Steelers. They haven't put up a ton of offense, but some of these guys have shown some promise, have flashed a bit. We're talking George Pickens. We're talking Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth. Those have all been very good starts. But Kenny Pickett is not going to be playing. We got Mitch Trubisky. You've also got the 2 running backs there. I mean, they had a smash matchup last week, and they all really failed. George Pickens had 10 points. Again, he's got to get that big play to get there. Yeah. But they all really failed us this past week, man. What do we do this week, Thursday night, at home against New England?
John, smash play for one guy, and that's Pat Freiermuth. Right now, he is borderline untouchable. Set it and forget it. He is grinding out there, man. I mean, he is the guy in this offense at this point in time. John, and so, yeah, start up Freiermuth for 100%. You could make an argument for Deontay Johnson. And I say that because when we're looking at what he's done with Mitchell Trubisky, right? He ended up having 8 targets 2 weeks ago. Again, that was on and off with Kenny Pickett got hurt, Trubisky came in, etc. Trubisky fully last week, he had 5 targets, he had 33 yards, and he had a touchdown. So what I'm saying is you could, if you need to, potentially look to start up that of Deontay Johnson. It is not a smash play. It is more of a hope and a prayer, more like hopefully I can get double digits out of this guy. But I like Deontay Johnson, especially knowing that the Patriots are more than likely going to try to shut down this running game, because that is what is going to keep this offense running or moving forward. Is it's going to be relying on Najee and Jaylen Warren. And yeah, both kind of had shit weeks in fantasy in terms of fantasy production. But when you actually, John, when you think about what Warren did, he actually performed extremely well and was very efficient over this past week. I mean, he ran the ball 9 times for 59 yards. That's pretty damn solid. It just wasn't good enough in fantasy, right? Because there's no touchdown. There wasn't any receptions out of the backfield, nothing like that. So he had 6 points. But you have a touchdown there, double digits, completely different feel. And his yards per carry were crazy. So for me, man, it's you absolutely are going to fire up Najee or Jaylen Warren. If not, Najee's banged up a little bit, by the way. So if his knee truly ends up not being full go walking into this game, Jaylen Warren could be a freaking smash type of play, right? But if it's Najee and Warren again here, unfortunately, if I'm in that boat and I have one of them, I'm probably firing them both up at that point in time. So I'm looking to fire up Najee. I'm probably looking to fire up Jaylen Warren as well. And then I'm definitely firing up that of Pat Freiermuth and maybe that of Deontay Johnson.
Okay, Frank, I've got a start-sit question for you here since this game is on Thursday and we're not going to be able to talk about it on the Friday episode.
Yeah.
Asking for a friend, Frank.
Okay.
Let's look at a couple, start-sits here for Jaylen Warren, comparing. Okay. You've got Jaylen Warren at home against New England or Jerome Ford at home against Jacksonville.
Oh, God, that is so hard. Wow, that is so hard. Wow, that is a really, really good question. John, I am probably leaning Jerome Ford. That's so hard. I don't know. Actually,
strictly a volume play at that point.
It's a volume play for Ford. It's a volume play for Ford for sure. With Trevor Lawrence banged up, their offense could look to end up being in serious deep shit, which means that if the Browns end up scoring early, getting ahead, maybe it's 10-3, 10-0, right? Something like that. Now it's the Jerome Ford Kareem Hunt show. That is why I'm leaning Jerome Ford. However, when we look at what Jerome Ford did against the Rams, right? He rushed for 19 yards on 9 carries. That ain't good. That's less than 2 yards a carry. But he ended up having a touchdown and caught all 3 of his targets for 33 yards. So he was getting more work from the receiving end and was absolutely abysmal from the running perspective. So, John, Jags have a good D, right? But we look at what Joe Mixon did to the Jags, and I think Joe Mixon is definitely a better running back, in my opinion, than that of Jerome Ford. However, Jerome Ford's a little bit more explosive than Mixon. So that is why I'm leaning a little bit more towards Ford because of the way Mixon was able to cut them up. I think that it could be more of a game script positive notion for that of Ford, knowing that Trevor Lawrence is out. And then and our defense has been very good for Cleveland comparatively to that of Jaylen Warren, who's definitely going to be splitting time with Najee and is playing in a kind of a decent defense, knowing that they're going to be stacking the box against Mitchell Trubisky. But that could change.
Helps, my friend.
Good. That could change, though, if Najee can't go. That could change. If Najee can't go, Warren needs to be started.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you give him the full volume on a Thursday night game with a backup quarterback.
Yep.
Absolutely. Love that. Thank you. I'll make sure to let my friend know, Franks. That's
perfect.
Going to be good.
Anytime.
He's going to be, he or she, they're going to be very happy about that. So.
Okay. Perfect. Are they subscribers and listeners? I'm just curious.
They are. And you know what? Let me tell you something about this person. He's gorgeous.
I heard
a voice
really
like an angel, like the mixture of Fergie and Jesus. I'll let him know that you said that. So
perfect.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. That's our show for today. Tune in. This episode we've got coming out Friday morning. This is going to be money. We don't care how long it is. We're just going to keep going and give everybody as much information as we possibly can to get you in your damn playoffs. All you got to do is get there, guys. You get there. Anything can happen. We all know that. So let's go. Let's have a great week, man. Thank you for joining us. Please follow us on social media, guys. We're on Twitter and X at Frankly Fantasy F, Instagram. Great follow. Really good information, but really funny shit. Frankie just bangs out some of these memes that are just awesome. That's at Frankly Fantasy Football. And you all listen on audio. I know you're out there right now. You're going for a walk or you're at the gym. Whatever it is you're doing, you're listening to us. Please watch us as well. Even if you don't want to watch it, just subscribe to it, guys. Really, thank you so much for helping us grow that YouTube channel. It's been fantastic. We just started it. What was it? Last year, we did a little bit with it. This year was really the full year where we did 2 episodes a week on YouTube. Man, it's exploded. So thank you guys so much. Please subscribe to that. Please hit the notification bell. Get us in the algorithm. You know, you got to break into that algorithm to get sexy there on YouTube. Thank you so much, guys. Frankie, parting words for us, brother. Your information today was goddamn great. We appreciate it.
Love you. And I love all of you guys listening and tuning in. To Johnny's point, guys, continue to be involved within the Frankly Fantasy Football community. Guys, we're all family here, right? Smash that bell, continue to subscribe. Guys, we have seen crazy numbers recently, and this is exciting for all of us. So let's keep the pedal down. We're here to win you your fantasy football league and some money with it. You want a nice little bonus at the end for Christmas and shit like that? Well, guess what? Keep tuning in because we're going to deliver for you. Love you guys. Thank you again.
May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.